What up? Hi, my name is Ben. Thanks for coming back to the podcast. If you're new here, I am an exercise scientist. I am a former Team USA athlete, and I have a master's degree in exercise physiology. Today, we are getting into a whole bunch of different things. The first thing that we're going to be getting into is the top question I feel like I've been asked this last week for whatever reason. These last couple of weeks, I've been doing a lot more podcasts, and so you can, I don't know, probably go check them out at somewhere. If you are here from there, then thanks for, coming back, finding us here at the Ben Thinking Podcast. So everyone's asking me, like, what are the top 3 movements to do in the gym? And I think it's a pretty simple answer for the most part. I think you can get very nuanced, but squat, bench, and deadlift are like probably the 3 things that everyone should be doing to some degree inside the gym. So very simply stated, the squat, bench, and deadlift. And I know there's a lot of people that don't necessarily like that answer because they don't like deadlifting, especially in the athletic community where we have a lot of individuals that think deadlifting is a high risk, low reward movement. I would just kindly disagree, and I understand their point of view, right? They're looking for the greatest power output that they can find inside of a movement, which would definitely be a clean and jerk, right? Or a clean or a power clean. There's an insane amount of wattage that goes into there because we're moving the weight really, really quickly. Makes sense, and a high reward given if I'm not necessarily a power lifter, but if I'm in football or if I'm doing any sort of like traditional athletic sport, so baseball and all these other things, super valuable. But most people aren't doing those things, right? And so generally speaking, those 3 movements are some of my favorite 3 things. For the squat in particular, I think that the thing to focus on whenever first getting introduced to the movement is learning how to walk out appropriately. I think that it is an oversight from people to just think that the walkout is just a random part of the movement, when in fact I think it's the thing that ultimately sets you up for success whenever you're actually going to execute the movement. So if I'm, having a walkout, I'm super unstable, I don't feel very confident, and then I finally am getting out there and I have all this weight on my back, or even just the bar on my back, and I already didn't feel confident from the very get-go, then the rest of the movement is probably not going to go very well. Right? So taking some time with realizing how I should be doing my walkout, I think is super important. I always like to say anywhere from 2 to 5 steps. Generally speaking, whenever I'm working with my general population athletes, I say 3 to 5 steps. And so the reason for 2 versus 3 is 2 is kind of masterful. It's a beautiful thing if you can manage it. But it's also very difficult, and also difficult for most racks. So traditionally, we, especially our Olympic athletes or our powerlifting athletes, we're using either like 2 individual stands, so not your traditional combo rack, or a more less traditional combo rack, but specific to powerlifting, so a powerlifting rack. And with these guys, we have the opportunity to kind of bring in each arm, either one or both of them inwards. They're called in racks or out racks. Out would be your traditional like straight, bar path, and then in would be, angled ever so slightly inwards. And that gives you the opportunity to take a step up and then immediately out into a position that ultimately wouldn't hit that rack. If I'm in a commercial gym, I don't really have that opportunity. I have these 2 massive poles, right, where my J hooks or where my bar is sitting, and getting one step out one direction, you're ultimately going to hit either the actual J hook, or you're going to hit the bar. So it's not really super feasible in most gyms, but 3 to 5, generally speaking, 2 to 5 if you have the opportunity to be in a powerlifting rack or those individual stands, which are fairly cheap. I think Rogue has some. I think Alico carries those. I mean, you can just go on Amazon and find them, and they're like $100. I mean, they're just ridiculously cheap. And then they go all the way up to, finding a combo rack, like an Alico combo rack that I think is like, I don't know, a couple grand, like $3-4 grand. So several grand. So all those are really good options whenever we're looking at our squat. So making sure that I have a really nice walkout is going to be the most important thing, or one of the most important things, I would say. Obviously, the execution of the movement is the actual movement, but we don't want to overlook the actual walkout. And then after that, I look at my squat. And what's hard about the squat is that we are all at different paces here, right? So some people have a lot of experience under a bar, and some people have very little experience under the bar. Some people want to believe that they're very experienced under the bar, when in reality, they need a lot of help. So, but it's really hard, right, to get to somebody, to tell somebody, hey, your squat sucks, and, you know, we need to fix it. There's, I guess, some sort of way to go about it that definitely is easier for most people to hear. But even then, if somebody has their headphones on, you see somebody squatting, not so great. It's kind of hard to have that entry point into saying, hey, I think we should, there's an opportunity here, an area for growth that'll make your squat that much better. And everyone likes to squat. Everyone wants to squat heavier, or have a better squat, feel better while they're doing it. So it's an opportunity for an entry. It's just hard whenever, you know, especially on social media, where everyone's like, hey, this is how I squat. I'm a badass squatter. But in reality, it's kind of disgusting. And the thing that disgusts me most are walkouts, because you can put 500 pounds on the bar and you still haven't like solidified your walkout yet. Like, it's still inconsistent. It's messy. It's, you know, have a lot of steps. It looks gross. It's just terrible. And so the execution of the movement, the next big piece for me is always externally rotating those knees. A lot of high school athletes, or a lot of people know this, is just like pushing the knees out is always like a common conversation. And so you can definitely look at pushing our knees out. But what's really happening is I'm activating my glute medius, which is in charge of the internal external rotation of my femur. And so that's why we see like excessive valgus whenever I have like a lot of the knees like really coming into the body, which on like general, like thinking about it out loud, like it's not terrible, right? Like it's not great, but it's not the worst thing. What makes it the worst thing, or one of the worst things, is the fact that you have downward pressure now onto the leg. And so now I have a structure with a force, you know, coming right down onto the spine. And then I have this really sharp angle with my knees now coming in towards my center of my center of my body, or towards my midline. And what that does is creates shear force inside of the knee, which for me is just, I mean, your knees are just crying. They're sad. And don't let your knees be sad. Put those knees out, right? So whenever we see that, and if you see that, especially at your top sets, then, or even at your lower sets, like we're having that as a fault, then what we should be thinking about is, how can I make my glutes stronger moving forward? And so there's a lot of things. You have a lot of external rotator things that can help with that. And so you can do glute bridges, which is like kind of okay. You have that abductor machine, abduction. So you have abduction and then adduction, or adduction. Adduction is towards the body, or you're adding to the body. So if I think about my hand, I'm bringing my hand closer to my face. That would be considered adduction, not necessarily in that plane, but you get the idea. And then we have abduction, which is the pushing away, or the opposite of it adding to the body. It's going away from. So same like example, hand to the face and then pushing away. So again, not in that particular plane. We have the sagittal plane. We have all these other different kind of planes medial plane that we can talk about. But just for simplicity's sake, just away from the body. And then towards the body. So there's a lot of abduction machines that you can definitely use that are pretty common inside the gym. There's also super simple things like lateral lunges that I think really highlight and activate that glute medius. So we just put a band around our ankles and we can do side steps either direction. That's a really good way to help increase the strength of your glute medius and ultimately reduce the likelihood of that knee kind of coming in, and makes your squat stronger, right? We have a better stance. We have more stability in our legs. Our knees are going to feel better. All the way around is just the best thing to do. So that's the squat for now, and then bench is the next thing that everybody should be doing. I like benching quite a bit. Obviously, I'm a power lifter, so that's kind of I'm a little bit biased. But I think that's it's a cool movement because it's another press, right? So if we're looking at our 4 fundamental movements inside of our existence, the pressing is going to be one of them. Generally, most people have the ability to do a horizontal press like that. A vertical press or overhead is kind of hard for people. And generally speaking, it would be hard for me to say like that's the movement. Overhead press would be the movement, just because there are a lot of people in today's society that just are so anteriorly rotated. It's kind of hard to understand like where the positioning is. There's a likelihood of injury. There's a likelihood of injury with bench pressing as well, but over my head now I have this bar just like sitting over my spine. Can be kind of dangerous and kind of can put people off from wanting to get into the gym to even begin. So that's why I say the horizontal press or the bench press. It's another compound movement, which is also super helpful. So I get a lot of leg drive. I can learn how to use my lats. I can, obviously I'm using my chest, my triceps. So we're working a lot of tissues. So it's good bang for your buck. Whenever I'm looking at this movement, some common faults that I see are not learning how to use leg drive. Yes, I'm a powerlifter and I care about leg drive, but at the same time, if I just want an efficient bench or a stronger bench, then I should be learning how to stay stable on the bench. And so whenever I see people like moving their legs, again, it's just a pet peeve to me, even though it's ignorance. It's not their fault, right? They just don't know. But it's still like it's an easy fix that will ultimately make your squat like that much better, that much quicker. So if you're having a hard time learning how to do that, then you can always do pause bench, right? So we just like place the bar on your chest for 3 seconds or so and learn what it feels like to drive your feet into the ground. So I'm not necessarily like driving straight down, but I'm driving down and then away from me. So kind of like down and out. And that you will usually create a significant increase in overall stability and comfort with the bench, and then also allow the bar to move back in the direction that it should be going. So whenever we're looking at these longitudinal studies or these longer studies, we see that people, especially powerlifters, the more experienced the powerlifter, the more experienced the bencher, the more that barbell path is more angled and less vertical. So, and there is a higher force production along with that. So again, if my goal is just to lift heavier and to be more efficient, then I want to be pushing up and back a little bit towards my eyes. But not so far back that I'm hitting the rack, right? So set up appropriately, but give yourself enough room to press up and then backwards for the maximum amount of force development and ultimately the maximum amount of efficiency. And I'm also going to add that with my leg drive, so it helps, right? It's going that opposite direction, which goes with the leg drive. And then another fault, I guess, for our bench is moderately common one is the butt coming up, which I think can be solved with learning how to use your legs appropriately. And so, yeah, don't lift your butt off the bench. It's not cute. Just because you're lifting a lot doesn't mean that it's a good thing. And then that's all I'm going to say for that one. So the next one that I think is probably the more important is learning how to engage my lats. So whenever I'm laying down on my bench, I people think I just want to like push the bar away from my body, but what I want to do is I think about pushing myself into the bench. I forgot who said this. I think it was maybe Dave Tate from Elite FTS, but I love the cue. It's a great cue. So you push yourself back into the bench. That ultimately will help you kind of, again, create more stability, feel that tension inside your upper back. And then we are also breaking the bar in half. And so I'm thinking about, splitting the bar out with my wrists and then splitting here. So in two directions, both like directly horizontal and then like a horizontal with a little bit of turn out. And that'll help with a little bit more engagement from your lats. Again, making sure that this is a compound movement. Now, if I'm looking just for size, I'm probably not just benching, right? That's probably not my core thing. But I could argue, well, I don't want all those things because I'm looking for size in my chest. Fantastic. That's great. Fantastic. Have a flat back, right? So no arch whatsoever. Minimal leg drive. And so we can do something like a Larson press where our feet are all the way off the ground. It's a little bit of stability issue there as well, but also at the same time, if you're having stability issues, it'll help correct that, right? So we have more of a narrow grip position whenever we're like really focusing on just, volume and size. You'll feel that burn pretty aggressively. You'll have a lot of hypertrophy that way. That's more of a bodybuilder style bench versus a powerlifter style bench. And then our deadlift, our last guy, one of my favorites. It's just, it feels good to lift heavy weight and like do it well and consistently. Strengthening my lower back. I think a lot of people automatically are like scared of the deadlift because of the lower back. But as long as I'm hinging appropriately, then and breathing appropriately, then I should have no real issue. There's no increased like risk for injury that versus a squat. So, and maybe there's a statistical analysis about that, but in my anecdotal experience, no difference whatsoever. So I don't think you should be worried so much, right? We're just learning how to hinge appropriately. So if you don't know how to hinge, learn how to hinge. And then to do that, we can grab a pole. There's a whole lot of videos online about how to do this, but you can grab a pole, put it behind your back, and just make sure, your head, your thoracic spine, and your lumbar spine all stay in contact with the bar the entire time while you're bending over pretty much, keeping the legs straight. And then you can also think about, standing a couple inches away from the wall and trying to get your butt to touch the wall without flattening your back or bending your knees. That's also a really good tool. And then we should be pretty okay from there. So those are some good things to focus on when we're deadlifting. We feel that tension or that like swelling inside of our lower back traditionally out after we deadlift or after we do some volume for deadlifting. Usually because just like a bicep, right? Like I have what's called sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, which is just a lot of fluid in the area, right? And so I have this like pump, right, if you will. Like if I'm doing a bicep curl, like if people get a pump, everybody talks about it all the time. The same thing is happening to any tissue in your entire body, right? Like sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is your body's way of sending a lot of nutrients to the area. We're sending fluid to the area, right? So because we're asking that area to do a lot more things. So it's normal. It's fine. You're going to feel burning. Now, if you feel pain, that's a different story, right? But that kind of swelling feeling we get around the lower back, not wrong. It's no difference between, doing a bicep curl and doing some RDLs for sets of 8. It's hard. Like it's inevitably hard, right? It's a lot of volume. It's probably pretty heavy. If you're new to it, then it's going to feel like, what is this new feeling? Like this is like scary and terrible. But it'll be okay. I think, just keep on consistent and keep with doing those 3 movements, and you should be quite all right. Okay. So, right now I'm looking at my phone because earlier this week I wrote for the New York Post. And we did a what's it called? A thing for them called "Should You Be Taking Electrolytes?" The white line sign that indicates you need to supplement. The white line sign, I think what a hell of a headline, to be honest. The first time I read it, is so you have salty sweaters and less salty sweaters. Our salty sweaters, you can traditionally see them have like these pretty like aggressive white lines. The saltier the sweater, the more aggressive the lines. Around our armpits. If you wear caps and stuff, you'll see kind of, that there around the head. You can also see it on the back of the cap. And then anywhere that would like predominantly where your sweat would pool. And if you let it dry out, if you just want to like do an experiment at home, you go to the gym, sweat, and then go home and then leave your stuff out to dry overnight. If you feel it the next morning and it's like a little bit crusty, like hard, then it's a pretty good sign. Second thing is if you see that like there's like a white line, that's exactly what it is, that lines the outside of where your sweat pattern was, you'll also, that is salt, right? So that's sodium. So these are some easy ways to find out whether you're a salty sweater or not. And hydration is really important, right? I mean, we're coming up on summer here in Las Vegas. I think that this will come out probably in a couple of months. So you're probably looking at really hot weather right now, future Ben and future people. Or current present people, since you're listening to this right now. So you can, it's a good way to make sure that you're staying hydrated. If you are a salty sweater, you should probably having more like Element. It's a great brand. They have some amazing stuff there. There's a lot of options that you can use for extra salt. In school, they would just say like add some salt to your water, but most people don't really like that flavor of salt. I do. And I also, it's not even about the flavor for me at that point. It's just like, I need salt in my body, right? I am a salty sweater, so I guess just got to make sure I have more salt throughout my life, which is a good way to do that. Yeah, that's what happened this week. We wrote for the New York Post. This last week we also had the Las Vegas Venom come into town, and so just want a quick shout out to Alani and then Relax Saunas for coming out to our event. We also had Nutcase Milk that was, they unfortunately couldn't make it, they're out of town, but they're going to be getting us some material here as well for our athletes, and I think overall moderately successful. I mean, successful for sure, but I have high standards, unfortunately, sometimes. So it was a good turnout for the most part. We had, I think, like 15, 20 athletes that ended up showing up. And I'm going to open up an Alani real quick. So we are doing a tryout. I spilled a bunch of stuff. We're doing a tryout for some new athletes. We're looking specifically for some ladies, and hopefully by this point we've filled our schedule and our roster, and it is not necessarily easy to find a lot of women that are that strong. It is cool to see, I think, the culture changing with more women being in the gym. It could be because of social media. It could be because just I think the feminism movement I talked about someone recently. It's like, people want to feel, especially, women want to feel strong and independent. And part of that being strong and independent is being in the gym, being able to lift your own stuff. And so I think it's cool to see more people in the gym, especially when, just 30, 40 years ago, it was not really, if anything, it was not necessarily, I don't know if demonized is the right word, but it wasn't necessarily looked at in high regard. So I think it's really cool to see people in the gym, especially our ladies, lifting more weights. I am also biased. I think, a fit body is a good body. So, that's just me. So ideally, this season we are doing some other cool stuff. We should hopefully get some more sponsors in for those guys there. And just running that business is the update. So hopefully we'll have some new updates in the future as this these videos continue to come out, to see how the rest of the team did for the season. Our season ends in August. We will be in Miami on the 24th of May, and hopefully have a pretty good turnout at that meet in terms of our overall position. It's really interesting, I think, managing a team, like the business side of it. So if I'm thinking about the organizational, like, how do you deal with specific personalities in this kind of very alpha mentality group of individuals? Making sure that people are working out, which is a weird way to make money. It's a weird business, but people are, obviously making a hell of a lot of money doing it. But I think it'll be a new, interesting challenge for Ben personally as, I guess, like as operations for this team, and like how do we ultimately maximize like player output, but also the image of the business. I think that'll be an interesting new challenge for me, that I am prepared for, I think, or at least getting more prepared for. So I think that'll be fun, but challenging. I think we have a lot of interesting individuals on the team that I am excited to work with. And some, honestly, I know this is like way in the future, so this is good. And it's kind of not really super excited to work with, honestly, fucking God damn it. There's some people that are just like, yeah, it's not that hard to be an adult, right? Like, answer your messages, text people back, communicate effectively. It's not that hard. So, learning how to navigate those things when I just have the immediate expectation for people just to follow up on those things is really kind of tough for me. But it's a learning experience, right? So that's good there. And then IE Health is pretty cool. So life update for IE Health. We have come out with the ATP, or All the Power supplement. And so that has been a hell of a road. It's been a couple years finally in the making of coming out with the product, and it was not necessarily the easiest thing in the world. I think a lot of lessons learned. One of my favorite lessons, two of my favorite lessons, I think, from that and then this week in general is three, maybe. I count upwards a lot as I think about things. First thing is, you can't rely on other people to allow you to be successful. It's a big one. I just continue to wait for, I got an offer for a licensing deal and for the first product, and it just never happened, right? And so I continued to wait for it to happen, and I didn't really say anything. I didn't want to push anybody. I didn't want to make anybody's feelings hurt, but because of that, I think part of that never happened, right? And then a year went by, and I was like, this thing's still not happening. Had another conversation with an M&A company, or mergers and acquisitions company, and it was the same idea. Like, we started a good conversation. Yeah, we can make this deal, and then didn't happen, right? And again, I waited for several months, but I think that at that point I learned you got to move on shit. Like, either, you call them more, text them, do emails, you can do whatever you got to do, but ultimately, if you're not getting replies, you got to take it into your own hands. And so that's what we did, right? So it's not the immediate gratification of a nice 8-figure payout, right? But at the end of the day, it's something that we got to see like all the way through, and it's a hell of a learning experience. Another one is I was playing video games. I bought a PS5. I've been playing God of War Ragnarok, I think was the name of it. And I was fighting this boss that I couldn't fucking beat, and it was the most annoying thing in the world. I mean, I must have played this guy like 50 times. And I just kept on dying, like within seconds, like not 50 times, over a couple hours. It was like 50 times in like an hour. Like, God, just couldn't beat the guy. And so I finally had this like thing in my head, this little mantra, if you will, that was just saying like, hey, just do your thing and let him do his. Like, you see what the patterns are, recognize the pattern. And then once you've recognized the pattern, just, how to maneuver yourself around it, right? So instead of leaning into trying to like follow this guy around and try to like attack him and try to kill him, I just sat back, and every single time that, a specific thing would happen, he'd open him up for more attacks, and then I would go ahead in there and do the attacks, right? And then back out, wait a little while, do it again. And so it took me longer, that one round, but it was shorter than all 50 rounds combined. And so I think focus on what you can do and what you can control, move at your own pace, because, fuck everybody else's pace. Yeah, I don't know. And then I had another thing. Find a marathon pace. I don't know that this is a real thing, but I work 7 days a week, right? And so I like it. It's kind of wild. So, but I found a pace that at this point where I can work on all 4 businesses pretty consistently daily. Everything's pretty like organized in my head, but also like in the calendar and all these things. And I'm still getting better. Like, it's not like I'm great, right? Obviously, I still have a lot of room for improvement. But I found a pace that I think that ultimately I can maintain for a long period of time, where I can do this like for 7 days, for a long period of time. And I realize that it's going to take a hell of a long time to see a lot of success as time goes on. But it's a good thing. And so all the power's out. Those are my lessons, I guess, for this week for myself. And so all the power is a pre-workout. And my big thing was I didn't want a pre-workout that made me feel like shit anymore. I really loved pre-workouts back when like Jack 3D was out and around. I don't know if you ever had that. I had the illegal one that had like the DMA 1.3 or 1.5 or whatever it was. Pretty much like meth. It was wild. But the what I loved about it the most was like the focus that it provided. Like, it was just, and there's also like a consistent thing that I really enjoyed about it. Like taking the scoop, getting ready to go to the gym, taking the drive, listening to a jam, like finding a stacking habits, if you will, as the Atomic Habits guy says. I forget his name. But great book. So I enjoyed that. Ritual ultimately is what it is, I guess. That just made it easy for me to consistently go to the gym. And then I started taking pre-workouts that just made me feel like absolute shit. Like, I'd want to throw up, like terrible, and like the wildest fucking diarrhea in the world. And I realized I want to shit with caffeine. I get it. But I don't need to shit my fucking brains out every time I take a scoop of pre-workout. Not a fan. So I played around in the house a little bit, bought all the materials, and started playing with flavors or ingredients, and finally came up with a ingredient profile that I think really gets me like focused, like really in the groove, and doesn't make me feel like absolute shit every time I drink it. And I like that a lot. And I also realize that it's something that I can take in the morning. It's something I can take in the evening. I usually work out. Like today, I'll be at the gym at 7:30, late day for Ben. And I feel confident that I could take that and then go to sleep at, I'll probably go to sleep at like 10 or 11, because I don't feel so like jittery, right? It's 200 milligrams of caffeine, 100 milligrams of green tea extract. The big kicker are going to be the alpha GPC and the lion's mane. So like extreme focus, like mental clarity from gods. It'll be amazing. Clip it. So yeah, it'll be good. So you can get yours at iehealth.co. Get you a bottle. We're doing a pre-sale currently. So pre-sales are going pretty good so far. We'll have material here in about 8 weeks. And so make sure you get yours, and then we'll sell out and then have some new flavors and do the whole jam. So we're definitely looking forward to it. Some other things about the gym that I feel like I keep on getting asked are, like this, I think it's the stupidest things. Like, what are the three, or what is the number one thing that you would suggest for people to do? It's such a fucking hard question. I think ultimately it's like, I guess just stay consistent, right? Just go to the gym, just like be consistent, right? And so right now I'm finally following my own program, right? I used to compete for the teams. I'm learning that is no longer Ben, and it's not something I can own today, right? I used to do it, but that's not me anymore, right? And so this new version of Ben is a different Ben, and this guy's trying to compete again, and so we're following a program. We're on week 7 of 8 or week 7 of 12 for our first mesocycle. So micro, meso, and macro cycles are the 3 terminologies used around periodization. Periodization is like how we periodize a program. So it's just like how do I look at it like in sections? And so a mesocycle is a little bit longer than a micro. Micros can be seen as, as something as small as a day or something as large as a week, versus a mesocycle is usually like anywhere between like 4 and 12 weeks. Macro cycles can be upwards of a year to 4 years. So, pretty big wide range there. So right now we're on a mesocycle. We're week 7 of 12, and it's crazy what happens in just 7 weeks. And yes, I have experience, but like following a structured program, I've added, I don't know, like I'm tripling my 1 rep max from deadlift like 7 weeks ago, right? And was that a true 1 rep max? Maybe not, right? Because I was kind of out of practice. It was a true 1 rep max at that time. And now I'm doing it for triples, and fairly easily. Still beltless. At that time, I was belting with my deadlift, and so it feels good to stay consistent. Like just follow a program, show up 3-4 days a week. I don't really think you need 7 days a week. There are people who like love that idea, and I think it's fucking dumb. I think you should just be in the gym 3-4 days a week. Give yourself enough time to recover, right? Like that's more the jam. And it should be an accoutrement to your life, not necessarily like your life, unless you are a competitive athlete. But even then, I have competitive athletes that train 3 days a week, right? And like they're successfully competing. I like on Team USA, right? Like because they're able to manage load really well, and then those sessions are fairly high intensity. Most people are lifting an hour and a half, and all you really need is like 3 or 4 days a week, man. You don't got to overthink it. Break it down the way I break it down is squat day, a bench day, a deadlift day, and then any accessories that go around with that. And then my day 4 is like an accessory day, a stretch day, a cardio day. Kind of depends on, ultimately that's like really hyper specific on your goal. So if my goal is just to be good at squat, bench, deadlift, then I might, do another variation of one of those things on my day 4. Maybe I'm super fatigued and that day 4 is just a stretch day, right? Because that's how my body reacts to heavy loads. So that day I think it has a little bit more nuance to it. But the other 3 days, like squat, I'm going to hit my hamstrings, my quads, I add in multiple, like I squat, 2-3 days a week, bench 2 days a week, and then deadlift twice a week, or bench 3 times a week, deadlift twice a week. And so like I double up, but ultimately, if I'm thinking of like a bodybuilder's mindset, like that squat day, I can just hammer quads, I can hammer hamstrings, right, my calves. That's all going to be done on that day, with the ultimate compound movement being the squat. And then for bench, like I'm working my chest and working my triceps, my biceps kind of being used as a stabilizer, my shoulders, right? So I can do all that stuff on that second day. And then my back day or my deadlift day, you can do all that kind of stuff, everything back related, lats, pull downs, pull ups, kind of, again, depends on what sports or what you want to do, but anything back or shoulder related can be done on that day as well. And a hamstring, right? And so it's a good day for that as well. And then glute on that same day as well. Man, look at all that. You can add so many things on just one day. It's beautiful. And then day 4, again, you can kind of use as you want, as you please, as you desire. So being consistent is probably the most important thing. It makes me happy inside. Finding some, like, making time for it, like, no matter what. I really don't want to go lift at 7:30, but that's where I could fit it in today because I've been nonstop, and it's just how life goes, and that's okay. Last thing, how long is that? 35 minutes? That's pretty good. Last thing is the best music to listen to in the gym. We're ending with this, and this is it. Maxo Cream, Eminem, System of a Down. Fight me. All right. That's it. Love y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.